Well, after making the playoffs last season in 2024-25 as a wild card, the St. Louis Blues have some pretty high hopes for the upcoming 2025-26 season. They want to break 100 points. They want to return to the playoffs, and they definitely want to make a run in the playoffs. So can they do it? Were the additions of Pius Suter, Nick Bjugstad, and Logan Mailloux enough? Will any players improve this year on their past seasons? Today, we're joined by special guest Sam Kohler to react to the Blues' offseason moves and predict their performance in the upcoming season. We're going to talk about all that and more today on Note News. Welcome into Note News. Once again, we apologize for the late start for all those watching live. Had some technical difficulties, but we're up now. Thanks for joining us. We're a St. Louis Blues podcast. We go live twice a week, as often as we can. It's John and Alec with you, as always, joined by a special guest, Sam Kohler. You can find Sam on Twitter or X at STL Analytics. Post a lot of great stuff, a lot of great Blues takes over there. Sam, how you been doing? Anything cool going on, or anything you're working on, or what's been going on with you?
I've been doing pretty good. Honestly, kind of had to dust off the cobwebs on the hockey brain today. Haven't really done a whole lot of thinking about hockey since the whole 1.6 seconds thing. But
Yeah,
you know, it's September. We got preseason games in 19 days. So yeah, I think I'm starting to rebuild the hype. Definitely
yeah,
starting to get back into it. So yeah, happy
awesome.
to be
Yeah,
back. It's been a while.
yeah. Thanks for coming back on. We love having you on as always. Monday, Labor Day, September 1st. This is the month where hockey happens again. We get some preseason hockey, as you said.
Yes,
So it's
sir.
the dream feels more real. But for all of those who haven't already, we'd appreciate if you would subscribe to our channel. It's the best way to help us out. Hit that button, like this video, follow, rate, review wherever you listen. We're on Spotify and Apple. And then follow us on socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, at Note News Pod. Post a lot of other stuff there. And then, as I said, follow Sam at STL Analytics on Twitter or X. Sweet. So I think what we're going to be doing today is, I don't know if you guys know Blues Fan Reacts.
Yeah,
I
Mason.
think yeah.
I've played roller hockey with him before.
Okay, nice. Yeah, he's a great guy. Love his content. I don't know if he was the first one that said this, but I like the term. And he does those State of the Bluenian like videos. So I think that's kind of what we're talking today is just kind of all things Blues based on the offseason that we just saw, all their moves this summer, maybe a little bit of draft as well. Really also going to be predicting the upcoming season and just sort of chatting about what we expect. Um, so it should be a fun one. Let's go ahead and get started by talking about. We can just kind of um, move somewhat in chronological order here. Sam, I think the last time we talked was before the draft,
Yep,
sort of
I think it
chatting
was a week
about,
before.
yeah, like what picks the Blues could make and what we thought they should target. Um, as everyone knows, at 19th overall, they picked Justin Carbonneau at forward. Is he a right winger or a left winger? He's one of the
Uh,
two. He's a
I
winger
think
for
he can play
sure.
both, but he's a right shot.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so he was kind of looking back the obvious pick at that point. Maybe he should have gone even higher by some people's estimations, but he has since being drafted kind of won over the hearts and minds of a lot of Blues fans. He's a tenacious guy. But Sam, what are your thoughts on the pick and your thoughts on Carbonneau as a player?
I love the pick. I was thrilled when we picked him, and even more thrilled after I went and actually watched him play 10 or so games. I think I like it too because it's very different from the type of guys that the Blues have picked in the last couple of years. Like they haven't really picked a true skiller, just a bring you out of your seat guy in a while. Like really, the last guy they picked like that was, I mean, they picked Dominic Bach in 2018, who was kind of like that, and he was a huge bust. I mean, I don't even think he's played an NHL game. I think they kind of got a little scared from that player archetype, but yeah, I mean, he is a ton of fun. You watch him play, he's just a chance creation machine, really more so than anybody in our system. Like, I mean, it's got to break right for him, but there's just so much to like. He's so good and he's so competitive and just,
Hmm.
he brings a lot to the table. So, yeah, I mean, I was stoked with it. That was probably one of my favorite Blues draft picks that they've made in the last 5 years. Him or Snuggerud.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. Alec, has your thinking changed on Carbonneau or evolved in any way?
I mean, JC's awesome. I think I'm more thinking about how he projects onto the team, like in the short term rather than the long term. Because I think he is a player who wants to compete for a spot sooner than later. I don't know if he'll get that opportunity this year. I personally would be kind of surprised. I know he's fired up about it and wants to fight for it, but I think they'd give that opportunity to Dvorsky before Carbonneau. And so I think with Carbo, him profiling long term, sort of slotting in on that kind of rotating third line that the Blues have right now, is a fun thought experiment. Uh, Given that the fourth line seems like they've kind of figured things out for the time being, at least with Walker, Torpchenko, guys like Bjugstad can all play. But the third line seems like that's where the opportunity is going to come. And even if you project into next year, like they are losing quite a lot of like bottom of the roster guys, like Nathan Walker. As of right now, like Torpchenko. So maybe that bottom six really will be an area where a Carbonneau could slot in like the season after this coming. So I think the opportunity is going to be there for the kid. I would just be, I guess, the only thought I've had about has this updated is that I think I would be really surprised if he cracks the NHL more than even 5 games this year, and even then I'd be pretty surprised. So I think it's going to take a little bit, but man, he's so much fun.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it'd definitely be a long shot. From what I heard, though, the Blues were thrilled with how he's looked this summer. But yeah, I mean, he's competing with like 7 other guys for one really roster spot. But I mean, the Blues have been fair in the past, right? Like if somebody earns it, no matter how old they are, they're going to play. So like, I wouldn't rule it out that he's going to play some games this year. But yeah, I mean, realistically, your 19th overall pick should not be playing his season after being drafted. But you know, stuff can happen in training camp, right? So
Yeah,
could happen.
yeah, for sure. I think what I like most about Carbonneau is the parts of his game that I see as translating really well to the NHL, and the types of things that if someone doesn't have it, you can't really coach it into them. Like I'm thinking his compete level super high. That's hard to instill in someone that doesn't already have it. So the fact that he's got it and that sort of drives his entire style in a lot of ways, that gets me really excited. So I mean, how do y'all think his style will how well do you think it'll translate, at the NHL level? And if not this year, how, like, I don't know, how soon do you think we could see him making an impact?
Um, yeah, so that's a really good point. I think that when you look at his style, it is the type of style that might be a little bit more of a slower burn
Hmm.
because he's one of those guys who honestly I haven't seen a player on the Blues or many prospects overall who are so good at as good at creating their own shot as he is,
Hmm.
which is obviously incredibly valuable. Like you have to be insanely talented to create your shot like he does. But the reason why is because it's really hard to do that individually in the NHL. Like you look at the best scorers in the league, it's guys, they're not going through multiple layers of defense by themselves and shooting. They're playing little quick give and goes. They're, finding soft areas, other ways. Whereas Carbonneau, a lot of times he's just like barreling to the slot and getting shots off. And he's talented enough to do it. And I think like it could translate eventually. But I think at least initially as a 19-year-old, that's a really, really hard um, way to play. But
Hmm.
I mean, the talent is just so good, and the compete too. Like he fights his ass off to get to scoring areas, which is so good to see. He does not play on the perimeter at all. He's always inside the checks. So I think at least initially it would be pretty challenging for him to, succeed a ton. But I think down the line he is talented enough to make it work.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a ton to add there. I just think that I'm ready to watch him dominate the queue again. I think the decision was an interesting one to go back to the queue, but whether it be for you know, just to put up another, I don't think it's necessarily just stat padding with him. I think it's um playing at the AHL might have been too big a leap. But then again, I guess if he wants to make the NHL, that's the biggest leap you can make. I don't know. I think it's about international play and about gelling with the team. And I do find that decision curious, I guess, but I trust he knows, what's best for him as a skater, and what the Blues obviously supported him in his decision to do so as well. So signs are all pointing towards it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
I
highlight
think.
tape is going to be sick next year.
Yeah, yeah. I think I probably would have preferred that he had gone. Well, it was Boston College, right? That he
Yeah.
had an offer from. So I probably would have preferred that. But it's I don't hate it. I think he'll look great in the queue, as you said. Okay, well, why don't we move this train right along? I think the next thing that happened, the first real like off-season move from the Blues was the Logan Mailloux trade. Controversial. It's a hot button topic for Blues fans. Trading Zach Bolduc, winger Zach Bolduc, to the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for young right shot defenseman Logan Mailloux, a guy who has a fair bit of offensive upside, not a great defender, and I think the real issue with this guy is just his decision making. Seems like that's sort of the consensus across the board. Maybe his biggest weakness is poor decision making. Alec has referred to him a few times on this pod, although I don't know if you're the one that coined this term of calling him the diet Evan Bouchard. Just like in terms of style, not necessarily in terms of likely outcomes and stuff like that. So, yeah, we haven't gotten a chance to break down this move with you yet, Sam. So, I mean, what are y'all's thoughts here a couple months later on the Mayu trade? Both what we got in a guy like Mayu and what we had to give up from giving up Bolduc going the other way.
Yeah, I got a lot of mixed opinions about this trade. I think first and foremost, it's kind of sad. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't always a huge Zach Bolduc fan as a prospect, but he was such an awesome story last year as a guy who just really earned it all year long. And I mean, he scored almost 20 goals. He was just feisty and got into the skin of the opponent. And I mean, his numbers were really good. Like defensively, scored 20 goals. He was awesome. And it really is kind of sad to not have that guy this year. But at the same time, like I totally get it. I think Bolduc was really one of the guys who I definitely would have looked at dangling this year too. I mean, I think the team had the right idea of, you've got Snuggerud, you've got Neighbors, you've got Holloway, you've got a lot of really good wingers already. Where does Bolduc fit in long term? And I think it was smart to dangle him for a really good player. And I think initially, like, he was going to be the guy that they were dangling for Noah Dobson. I'm virtually sure that if the Blues got Noah Dobson, Bolduc would have gone the other way. But so yeah, like I like that they were trying to trade him for a good player. I think the mixed opinion is, it really depends on Logan Mailloux. Like, I have seen him play probably 10 games. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good there for sure. I think a couple things I really liked about him was he really took good care of the puck. Like I don't see him turn it over a lot. He was pretty reliable. I mean, he's a big guy, pretty tough to play against. Like he pushes you out of the way. And yeah, the shot from the point's obviously great too. And he's really aggressive in the rush. But yeah, I mean, the defensive concerns are real. like it was like once or twice a game he was letting a guy get behind him for a breakaway, which that is just not going to fly in the NHL. Or he was just wandering and he was just leaving his guy alone in the slot. I don't know. I think you can clean that up, right? I think you just tell him to be a little less cavalier and just focus on, making good outlet passes and staying in your lane. And then when you're in the offensive zone, be creative, use that shot. But I mean, it's risky. So I don't know. I think I like the idea behind the trade, but it definitely remains to be seen if it's going to be a good trade. And I can't say one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the verdict's still out. Alec, you've talked about Mailloux maybe meshing in really well with Monty's system as well.
Yeah, I just look at what happened with Cam Fowler, and they're not at all the same type of player, but I do think that there's something to Monty and his defensemen. I mean, even going back to Boston, having, getting the most out of roster talent, Monty really knows how to use his defensemen. And that's where Mailloux slots in kind of perfectly to this system. I think that there's a lot of upside, and I kind of believe in the coaching to assuage some of the downside. I think the fact that Doug Armstrong selected this guy as somebody that the Blues could target because he was ready to go in the NHL, not just like a good prospect, but ready to earn a spot to play in the NHL. The fact that the reports from camp from Monty and co have been very positive. Speaking of Mailloux's like drive and impressive just offensive style, and then the playing time opportunity for Logan Mailloux as a right shot young defenseman, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for him there. It's all kind of cooking into this nice, perfect storm, how I see it, of what could be a very promising young defenseman. And I do think the full upside of a Mailloux is still probably capped for this season. I think like as a rookie, there's going to be a lot of those rookie learning moments that you're just going to have to live with a guy like Mailloux. But I fully expect it to, by year 2, year 3, get coached out of him and sort of be able to clean up his overall game. And I think long term, like giving up a piece like Bolduc is definitely going to forever like kind of hurt, just because, like you said, Sam, he was so excellent, especially defensively. But um, I would argue it's easier to find at the peaks of their potential. It's easier to find a Zach Bolduc than it is a Logan Mailloux, and for that reason, why wouldn't you make the trade? Definitely took a lot of gall from Doug Armstrong to pull off that move, but I am absolutely here for the opportunity that Mailloux's going to earn. I think it's all in front of him, and this is the kind of competition like this, having a spot, but having to really fight for his spot is exactly the kind of position you want a young skater to be in, to push them to be the best version of themselves. I think learning from, pretty much every defensive style that he could want from Cam Fowler, from Colton Parayko, from Philip Broberg, all offer sort of different approaches to playing the defensive position. Um, and I just think it's all in front of Mayu, and I think there's like serious upside for this to look pretty good in year 1 and really 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 good into years beyond that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's one thing that makes me a little less worried about the whole move is that he just has so many believers. Like you said, whether it's Armstrong or Monty and people who follow the Canadiens, like there's a lot of people who were huge believers in Logan Mailloux. And, when there's so many people who are behind a guy like that, it's kind of like, okay, well, yeah, there's issues with his game, but who am I to say that this guy can't be a great defenseman? So, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely excited to see how he looks. I don't really know what to expect, actually. So I think that's going to be kind of fun.
Yeah, that's a great point. He does have some believers. And I think, sort of back to what you were saying, Sam, it is a pretty risky move. We talked about this at the time. It's tough to criticize the idea, the thinking, like you were saying. Um, just because we knew going into this offseason that the pool of players that was sort of the strongest and the one that you'd want them to deal from, it was the wingers. Like that was sort of the talking point. And then, what do we need? Well, we need a young defenseman, preferably right-handed with upside. And that's kind of what they got. I think it's a little bit riskier than a guy like Noah Dobson would have been. But they had to pivot when things didn't go their way with that one. So um, there's that side of things, and then it sucks to see Bolduc go. But I think if you're being realistic and you want someone that does have that upside, he's on the short list of players that have to go the other way. It's like
Yeah.
him and maybe Neighbors could have been on there, but like he seems a little bit more untouchable. But like there's not a lot of players that fit the bill of what you need to give up, like Zach Bolduc did. So it is tough to see him go, but you got to give to get. And so I don't hate the thinking. It is risky, but I think I'm cautiously optimistic at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking third pair, right? Just like him and Tyler Tucker, just see what happens. Do y'all have any other thoughts? I'm
think
also a little bit intrigued, although probably more scared than I am intrigued, of the idea of him and Broberg on a line, like or on a pair, and then demoting Falk. Maybe once Mailloux gets his feet under him or something. Um, I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah, I think like maybe even like post trade deadline as a tentative date.
Hmm.
I wouldn't be super shocked if Mayu overtakes Falk on the depth chart.
You're getting into bold
Yeah.
predictions already.
I think that would be very good for the team if that can
For
happen.
sure.
Like if Mayu is good enough that, I mean, Justin Falk's been one of the, I personally wouldn't be this for me, but I mean he's been one of the minutes leaders for the Blues for like the past 5 years, even last year. Like if Montgomery is confident in Mayu that he overtakes Falk's minutes, I think that means he's been really, really good that year. So if that happens, the Blues are in a really good spot.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so why don't we pivot now to talk about the free agent additions that the Blues acquired this offseason. Obviously, the big one, Pius Suter, center who was playing with Vancouver most recently, and then Nick Bjugstad is the other one, who's a sort of a bottom six, probably center or winger. He seems a little bit adaptable, and for that matter, Suter is pretty adaptable as well. I think he got some minutes up on the top line in Vancouver last year, but more realistically, he's a middle six guy. He can play center, he can play wing. Solid defensive guy. He's that 200-foot player they were looking for. Had a career year last year. Let me pull it up. I mean, like every year of his career so far, except for last year, has been like 14 or 15 goals. But last year he sort of came alive for 25, tacked on 21 assists to that. So I think the big questions around Suter are: can he repeat a year like that? Like, is this the new expectation for him? Maybe with a more carved out concrete role is to score something like 25 goals and 50-ish points. That's one question, and the other is like, where does he slot in? Right? Is he the 3C? Does he take Shin's spot on that second line? Like some people think he might. Does he play wing? And for that matter, I think the questions with Bjugstad are a little bit similar, right? In terms of positioning, is he your 4C, or do you have him on the wing somewhere in the bottom six? And then the other question is, can you get something out of him like what Arizona got out of him a couple seasons ago? Had 22 goals and 23 assists, or is the more realistic expectation for him something closer to what it was last year, which was 8 goals and 11 assists? So a lot of questions surrounding these two guys, these two centers that the Blues acquired this offseason, mostly with where they're going to slot in and what type of season we're going to get out of them, because they've both had a couple different kinds of seasons in recent years. So what are your thoughts on the additions? Do you think they were the right ones? And what are your thoughts on those many questions that I just asked?
Yeah, I mean, I was really happy with both of those signings. I think you kind of nailed it too. Like the big thing with both of those two guys is they're just versatile and useful players. I mean,
Yeah.
you can just kind of, even Bjugstad, he's more of a, I mean, he didn't even have 20 points last year, but I mean, you can slide him up and down the lineup, right? Like he's a pretty good player. He'll give you good results wherever you put him.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, Suter is just Mr. Versatility, right? I don't
Swiss
think.
Army knife.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally Swiss. He's
Yeah,
actually the
he's Swiss.
first Swiss player in Blues history, I think.
Oh, awesome! I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's kind of crazy to think about because
Mhm.
there's a decent amount of Swiss players.
Yeah.
But yeah, he, yeah, I think you bring him in to play center just because that was a pretty big need last year. They had Shen and Sundqvist as the middle six centers. I think you kind of need him to play one of those middle six roles. But you know, I think I tweeted this a couple weeks ago. Like, I wouldn't hate seeing Suter rotate up on wing on one of the top six lines. I mean, he's so good at getting to space in the slot. Like, that's really his game. He just slides into those soft areas, and no one seems to see him, and he just one times those passes from the slot. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see him rotate around throughout the season. I think he can do it. I think 25 goals is probably a little rich. I think probably looking at the, 17 to 20 range with him. But,
What I'm thinking
he's
too.
more than that too. Like, he gives you great defense. He's a good player. Yeah, I mean, I really like both signings. They add a lot. I think they're both two comfortably at least third line caliber players. Suter maybe a second line caliber player. So, yeah.
Nice. I think Suter was like my number one target on my realistic UFA list for this offseason. So I was thrilled with it, and then thrilled to see the contract they signed him to. It felt like after some sinners went off the board and you know, re-signed with their existing teams or whatever, that contract for him would be expensive and long, but they got him for 2 years and like just north of 8 million or something like
Yeah,
that. So
they got those two guys for nothing.
yeah, it's impressive work by Army. I was like, oh my gosh, we got Suter. What did we pay him? And I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's all it took. It's incredible. There was a lot of demand for centers out on the market. So the fact that Army and Steen were able to get that one was huge. And then yeah, Bjugstad, as you said, super versatile, bottom of the lineup kind of guy, or wherever he's asked to play, like you said. I think one of the reasons I like Suter so much is he's a great penalty killer, and the PK was just such a weakness for the Blues last year. So working him into the rotation, and we've talked maybe about getting Holloway some more reps on the PK might be a good idea. Just kind of trying something new because it worked at times last season, but on the whole, it wasn't great. Alec, what are your thoughts on these two guys?
It's depth that the Blues, like, I don't know that they needed last season because last season just like went so well in so many ways. But if we're being realistic, last season was like a 85th, 90th percentile outcome for the team. Like, it was especially that winning streak. That's not something that you can just bank on really. And so adding a guy like Suter and Bjugstad sort of all they do is raise the floor of the team. So if some of the potential questions that you may have about can the Blues hold up at 5-on-5 against every minute of ice time against the opponent. Like, a big part of that was dominating the game with the WTF line was that they were so good at 5-on-5 on limiting chances against. Pius Suter and Nick Bjugstad are going to do exactly that, replacing for basically nothing, like you said. And then, what I really love about these two signings is the term of their contract being 2 years is like just the perfect window for them to have put these guys in, because that's exactly when you're going to be calling up the next crop of, Stenberg and Lindstein and Carbonneau and all these players that we've been waiting on for so long now. But it allows an NHL vet to sort of take the minutes and show what they can do, in a new opportunity. And I think with Bjugstad, I really think there's some good hockey like in him. It really feels like, the season totals in Arizona were obviously much higher, but I think there's a lot to like about how he plays as such a large physical presence, can give a lot more that like cutting edge to the Blues that they had, but could always use more of. Um, I think that's just such a nice hockey player to have on your team is a guy like Nick Bjugstad. Like you're never going to be upset in a year if he gives you,
Hmm.
a so-so addition and like this dominating physical play on bottom lines. So I'm honestly a lot more excited about I think the Bukestad edition because it makes the calculus of the bottom six a lot easier too. Like you said, not having to play Oscar Sundquist every day would be a
Yeah.
blessing not so in disguise. And I Suter will be great too. I'm not really worried about him. I think he's just the most reliable, consistent, um, option the Blues could have picked. Like you know exactly what you are getting. There is absolutely no doubt. And I don't want to say there's not a lot of upside because that makes it sound worse than it is, but the upside is somewhat limited. Um, but there's that you're getting a great hockey player who is going to help you get better like 5-on-5 control. And if you at 5-on-5 can at least like stay afloat and not lose in one-on-one battles, and then you let your top six go to work, that's I think a really winning formula here because the Blues top six, I know we did an episode on it recently, the Blues top six is pretty formidable as far as I know the Western Conference right now is just so good that makes that statement feel less impactful than it is. But if you want just like objectively good hockey teams, they've got a really good top two lines right now. So yeah, I think this all it does is it really raises the floor of what could be for this season. And that's exactly I think the right approach to be taking if you're not landing the big fish.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. Like they're very floor raiser moves.
Hmm.
Like I feel like last year in that playoff series, especially like in the end of that series when they moved Cairo up to the top line, it was like, oh man, if the top line's not on the ice and the WTF line's not on the ice, like this is just this is just not good. Like these guys cannot
Hmm.
hang. And I think that's not going to happen this year, right? Like if someone goes down, Holloway gets hurt again, Buchnevich gets hurt again. God forbid, Thomas Shakiro gets hurt. Like the middle of the roster is going to be able to sustain much better. And then you've got your floor raisers there, and your ceiling raisers are, Snuggerud and Mayu and Dvorsky. Like those are your outs. Like if those guys are really really good right off the hop, you got a really really good team. So yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. Like it's it just makes the team a lot more safe. I,
Hmm.
I think like it, if there's a lot of injuries, they're going to be much more capable of sustaining that. And then obviously they still have the upside too. It would have been great if they could have gotten a true ceiling raiser, like a true top of the lineup guy who just gives you something that you don't have. But
Hmm.
that move didn't exist this summer, so I really like what they did.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to sum it all up. Last offseason question, I guess a couple of questions. First, did you want the Blues to do anything else? Sam, you kind of hinted at it there. Maybe you wanted them to get someone more top of the line. Did you want to see both of you? Did you want to see anything else out of the Blues? And then what grade would you give their offseason? And then we can pivot to talking more about the upcoming season.
Yeah, I think what I liked about the Blues offseason is that despite like sort of going all in with a move like Bolduc, they still relatively didn't necessarily like lower the outcome of what could be here. Like I want to say they moved the goalposts, but at the same time they kind of didn't. Like it's just a stable trajectory up, which at the very beginning of what we hope is a Stanley Cup contention window is not when you want to be potentially shortening that window. So I think they had the right approach for like where they're at in the timeline. And in terms of a grade, I would say like B minus, B, probably a B. as just like you did what you needed to do. You're on the right track. You're on the right path. Didn't go out and get like I don't know. The name in my head is a Robertson, but like didn't necessarily go out and get that true um, impact piece. But you don't always need to do that, especially when you have such a young team that's developing internally. Waiting to see another year of what that could look like, I think is good process, even if it isn't exciting.
Yeah, I agree. I think a B is a comfortable grade. I think going into the offseason, I thought they were in a good spot to maybe swing for the fences a little bit. But if you look at what happened this summer, that move just really wasn't out there. And,
Mhm.
the Blues were, I'm virtually sure that the Blues had the best offer for Noah Dobson. Like, I think if he was going to sign in St. Louis, he would be a Blue right now, and it would have been Bull Duke and a first and somebody else going to NYI. And so I think they tried, and I think that was very wise of them to do that. But yeah, I mean, I think they stayed safe, but I think they also improved their roster. Obviously, it sucks to lose Bull Duke,
Mhm.
but at the same time, I just don't think that move is going to just severely bite them. I mean, Bull Duke's a good player, but is he going to be a star? I'd be shocked if he was going to be a star. Like, I think he's going to be good. Montreal, I'm sure will love him. But even if Mailloux just sucks here, I'm not going to lose a ton of sleep over that move. I like the idea behind it. Um, yeah, I mean, I think a B is a comfortable grade. Depending on how Mailloux does, I think that could easily raise to an A. And the other thing I like is like you said, the Blues are still loaded, right? They have their first round pick next year. They have plenty of prospects to trade from. Maybe that big move comes around in season, and
Hmm.
um,
That's what I think.
yeah, like I think
I
it
think
could
they're
happen.
gearing up for a big trade deadline.
Yeah, that would be interesting. And like they also didn't shoot themselves in the foot too. Like they didn't go for broke on a big move. I'm happy that the Bowen Byram thing didn't happen. As fun as that would have been, like I would have been kind of on board with it, even though I don't know. It's a pretty risky move. So I
Hmm.
like what they did. I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I just for the sake of all of us not being uniform, I'll say B plus. Just because I was wanting the Suter edition for a while before it happened, so I was pretty thrilled with that. And then I just kind of thought they checked all the boxes they really needed to.
Yeah.
Um, Acquiring young defensemen, giving up only a winger position of strength, and then going out and improving your center depth, getting a guy that can play on both sides of the puck in the middle six. Like that's kind of what they needed, and that's what they got done. So I really liked it. And then, as you said, they didn't shoot themselves in the foot. Maybe they didn't raise their ceiling a whole lot, but they definitely raised their floor as we sort of discussed. And so, yeah, I'll give it a B plus. I was just pretty pleased with the offseason as a whole. So, well, I think that does offseason talk. Why don't we pivot to making some predictions, and then maybe this time next year we'll look back and regret everything we said. But Alec, how did you want to take this sort of looking ahead to the 2025-26 season discussion?
So I think the idea we had is like thinking about what is the floor of the range of outcomes, like what would be kind of the worst case scenario for the team, what would be the best case scenario for the team in a realistic setting, um, and then what is like probably going to happen, is the way that I'm thinking about this. So for example, I think the floor of this team is still not all that bad. It's not like a 2022-23 season where the wheels are falling off of old players and the team is just so slow and it can't catch up to any 5-on-5 offense. And like the floor of this team is still going to be pretty good, even if it is probably, I think, missing the playoffs. I think there is an outcome where the Blues do miss the playoffs this coming season. As
Oh
you
yeah.
know, excited as we all are for the season and to watch it, the Central's really, really good. There are like 6 teams probably that could make the playoffs, 5 teams, depending who you ask. And that's just in our division. The Western Conference is also really, really good. The East is kind of I don't know, not as good if you ask me. And that's who you're going to be playing for the bulk of your schedule. So it's going to be a tough draw, although admittedly the matchups themselves, like the way that they're set up, doesn't look too bad. It looks pretty favorable for the Blues, actually. But I think that the floor still is missing the playoffs, probably somewhere like mid 80s in the point totals. Is like a, you know, close to 500 team, maybe a little bit above, and competitive, can beat anybody on a given night, because you're still going to have games from Robert Thomas, from Jimmy Snuggerud, from Jordan Kyrou that can win you a game in any given night. But I do think that we should address that there is a semi-realistic shot, at least in some outcomes, that they do miss the playoffs in a very, very competitive year for hockey.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think there is a chance that they miss the playoffs, but I think that would be a huge disappointment. Like, I think
For sure.
I think they would need a Robert Thomas long-term injury, God forbid. Um, but yeah, I think if they miss two, they'd get 90, 91, 92 points. Like, I think they'd still be comfortably above 500. Um, but yeah, I mean, it definitely could happen, right? They made it on the last day last year. The team isn't all that different. Um, but I think there's also a pretty legitimate argument. Or wait, do you want to say your ceiling first, or can I go?
John, did you have anything?
I was just gonna say, I think in terms of floor, I think I'm more. I agree more with Sam here. I think that the floor is definitely missing the playoffs, but I think it's more to do with sort of the steps taken by a team like Utah or something like that.
Hmm.
More to do with that than with the Blues falling off a cliff or something like that. So I think low 90s, high
Mhm.
80s is kind of the floor I'm thinking. I just think sort of what we talked about in the offseason segment is it's just this is a pretty solid and relatively deep team, and while they don't have like a ton of crazy high end top of the lineup talent, they've got enough there to really make some noise. So I think floor wise, something around what, at least in terms of point total, something around what we saw from Utah this year, and um, like Vancouver, something like that.
Yeah, what I want to say to that, Sam, let me shoot you a what's it called, a segue here, is that this is the worst case scenario that we're talking about for this Blues team, and it's still like sniffing playoffs.
Yeah,
That's the floor of this team. That's the 10th percentile. Everybody is injured and a nightmare scenario. So why don't you get us more into some optimism talk, because there's a lot of optimism to be had.
yeah. I mean, I think their ceiling's really high. At least um, in the regular season, I think we can get into what we expect in the playoffs a little later, but I think for regular season wise, I mean, I think there's a chance that the Blues are like the surprise team this year, kind of like the Capitals last year, where you know nobody really believes in them, but I think that they could finish top five in points in the NHL, and I don't think that would be too crazy. I mean, they've got if you look
Oh,
at the way
yeah.
their roster is constructed, their best players are at the apex of their career, or they should be. I mean, like, is it really going to be a shock if Robert Thomas has 100 points this year? I don't think it should be. And Kyrou is the same age. Holloway is like 24. Broberg. They have so many players who are just in the right age range, and now they
Mm-hmm.
have the depth that we talked about earlier, where they have a lot of outs where you know they're just going to get good minutes from lots of players. And yeah, like I said earlier too, like they have these wild cards who could be outstanding players for them and really push their ceiling to another level. Like we talked about Mailloux extensively, and Snuggerud and Dvorsky. Like if those guys are really good right off the hop, I mean, this team absolutely could finish top five in the league. They have Montgomery, who's the best regular season coach, I think, inarguably.
Mm-hmm.
He took those, pretty middling Bruins teams. Well, not one of them, but some pretty middling Bruins teams to like the very top of the league.
Yeah.
They have two good goalies, so they're not going to have like a long stretch of the season where they're just getting, stuffed in a locker because their guys can't save a beach ball. And I think the one concern you look at with the team is what happens if Cam Fowler and Colton Parayko can't play like they did last year. And
Yeah.
I think that's a little bit of a concern because those guys are getting up there in age, and the guys behind them. There's Broberg. Can he repeat what he did? Is Falk gonna, how is Falk gonna fare? Tucker was really good down the stretch, but do we really believe, can he do it again? Same with Mailloux. Like, there's definitely concerns, but I think there's a very legitimate chance that it breaks right and the Blues finish very high in the league.
Yeah, I'm fully
Like
on
it.
the train. I think this could be a I don't know about President's Trophy winning team. I don't think I'd go that high,
Yeah,
but I think but I think this can be 108, 110 point team, as one of the best in the league, and maybe even higher. Um, like I think that there's so much reason for optimism. You want to talk about coaching. You want to talk about can your General Armstrong, can your general manager um, make a move that's going to make the team better and help them compete in the playoffs and in the regular season. Army's proven to be good at acquiring that talent. You want to talk about do you have the top of the league talent? You've got Robert Thomas. Do you have supplementary pieces? Jordan Kyrou, Pavel Buchnevich, Jimmy Snuggerud. I could go on for about half the roster about supplementary pieces that could score between 20 to 40 goals. And they're all only getting better for the most part with guys like Holloway, like you said. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of just echoing your sentiment, preaching to the choir here, but I think that there's just so many reasons, like so many individual reasons to be hopeful about this team that when you put it all together, this is going to be a really good hockey team, and I'm pretty confident in saying that. I really hope this doesn't come back to bite me, but there's just so much that can go right that even if half the things go wrong, this is still going to be a really good hockey team. And
yeah.
that's exciting.
I
Yeah,
mean, they've
we're
got like very good, not very good, but they've got like legitimate, useful NHL players that are going to be in the press box every night. Like Matthew Joseph is probably going to play like 30 games. He's a very capable player. Like Oscar
mhm.
Sundqvist was pretty good last year. He's not going to play half the games this year. They've got a lot of depth and just a lot of outs, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're fully in off-season optimism mode, but I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I I don't know why, but I think I thought Sam's ceiling projection might be a little bit lower than that, but I think Sam's top five in the league pick is maybe the most optimistic take here. I love it. I'm thinking something like third in the Central, or maybe like second in the Central, just something like that. Um, I do like the idea of like 105-ish points or something like that. Maybe my ceiling's a little bit more on the realistic side. But if everything goes right, I could see something even better than that. Something like what y'all are talking about. And yeah, as you said, Jim Montgomery is like the best regular season head coach in the game. Something they've talked about throughout this offseason is just getting off to a good start. We saw Winnipeg and Washington do exactly that. Those are the two teams in the running for the President's Trophy at the end of the season. So getting off to that good start is key. And for what it's worth, I think they're in the right mindset. They're ready to come out of the gate playing with their hair on fire. It seems like, and so you know why not us, right? I think
Why not us?
I think the ceiling could definitely be really high for this team. I share in the optimism. Um, Alec, you have any other thoughts there, or do you guys want to talk about maybe some median, middle of the road, or I guess middle of the room takes, floor, ceiling, maybe like the middle of the wall. I don't know.
The standing room, leaning
Yeah,
up against the couch.
yeah. I don't. Yeah, there we go. Our couch takes. All right, so what do we think is like maybe the most likely outcome or the median outcome for this team? 96 points last year, snuck into the playoffs on the last day of the season, second wild card in the West. Um, and for what it's worth, the that wild card race in the West should be pretty hotly contested. I think you've still got Calgary and Vancouver squarely in the picture. You've got Minnesota in the picture. I think Utah scares me the most. I think I think you could see LA dropping back. I think you could see Anaheim taking a step, maybe at their like 90th percentile outcome. It's coming one of these seasons for Anaheim, maybe not
Yeah.
this one, but anyway, so there's a lot of teams sort of in this range, and then like they were only 6 points behind Colorado this year. So I mean, what are we thinking? Like wild card, maybe they can maybe a middle outcome is they nab one of those central divisional spots. Yeah, what are y'all thinking as what's most likely to happen this upcoming season?
I'm thinking like if I was putting my season well, I don't know. I'm kind of on the higher side of the team. Like I kind of think my hot take is that they're going to be really good in the regular season, but I think a more reasonable take is maybe like 100, 102 points, and
Hmm.
they're the 2 or 3 seed coming out of the Central.
I like it.
I think that's pretty realistic. It's just like I said. I mean, the top players are going to be at the top of their game, and really, if they're not at the top of their game, and not able to lead the team to a legitimate, fairly high place in the Central Division, I think there's some issues. But yeah, I think like 100, 102 points comfortably in the playoffs. I think
I
that's
like it.
reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say I feel like I'm lower on the team, and I'm still gonna go like 100 points or so, and in the playoff race. I don't know if that ends up being that. That's the thing is I don't know if that ends up being Divisional 3 or Wild Card 1,
Yeah,
because I think that's just hard to predict in terms
Yeah.
of what the benchmark is going to be this
for
season in the
sure.
Western Conference. Um, but I think I'll call it wild card one. Just if teams don't regress as much as we are projecting, which it kind of feels like a changing of the guard is coming, as like Colorado, Winnipeg, Minnesota's been there for a while now, are arguably all on the down. In Utah and St. Louis are sort of on the up right now. But I think maybe a median scenario is that Colorado's still pretty good. Dallas, I'm pretty high on Dallas this year. I think Dallas is going to be really good in the regular season, that is. Uh, and that leaves, between Winnipeg, Minnesota, and St. Louis for that Divisional 3 spot. I do think Winnipeg regresses, so maybe I don't know. It's tough to say where exactly they'll land, I guess. But for the Blues, I think it's one of the better offensive teams in the league. I think it's a sort of average to above average defense, probably more of an average defensive unit. Um, and like I said, one of the better offensive teams in the league, with pretty solid goaltending to boot. And I think that nets you around 96, 100 points. I think they finished where they did last year, but it looks a lot better, and they don't have to rely on a historic winning streak to get there. And I think they're in the dance once again.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
we're all in the same boat here. I'm taking 100 points as well, or roundabouts. And for what it's worth, I think Monty and Army they've got their sights set on that century mark as well. It seems like the right goal for this team is to improve to around 100 points, and so yeah, I think that's totally reasonable. I think playoffs is the expectation. I don't think it's really as much of a hope as it was last year. I don't know that a lot of us saw it coming last year, but hey, they got there, and now the goalposts have changed a little bit. Now it is the expectations for sure, and I think that I think that's the right move. Sam, as you said, they've got a lot of good players squarely in their prime, um, and they've got a lot of good young players like entering their prime. Like there's a lot of guys that should be taking some steps here. Dylan Holloway, Philip Broberg. Can they can they, add on to their breakout years from last year? So there's some,
Mm.
excitement to be had around this team for a lot of reasons. And so, yeah, I think 100-ish points, give or take a few, should be like a pretty reasonable outcome. I think we're all on the same page here.
Yeah. So can we do like a couple assorted questions? I got a couple points I want to hit just in terms of season projections and stuff.
Sure.
So one thing is I wonder, um, this is something I've been thinking about a lot. For the longest time, obviously the Blues' biggest Achilles heel was their defense was old and bad and just could not do anything. Don't the Blues kind of have like a pretty decent to good defensive unit now? Like, are they in, if not, the top half of the league, like approaching top 10 defensively? Like, on paper at least, there's a lot of very solid, stable units or stable components. So has the Blues defense turned around, and how would they rank, I guess, among the NHL top units?
I don't know
That
if
is
I'd
a
go
really good
that
question.
far. That is a good question. I think, Sam, you pointed to the big question around Pareko and Fowler. Can they repeat? If they don't, I think the picture looks a lot scarier. Um,
Sure.
I think I
Oh yeah,
think
yeah.
I think if everyone is playing decently well, Alec, I think maybe so. Maybe they do have one of those top units, and I think defensively as an entire team, they have a really good case for top 10. If you include defense from your forwards as well. Fowler Pareko, I like as a top pair. I think it works. You just kind of gotta hope that they don't fall off. Broberg, I love. I don't know if you guys know that. And so I
No idea.
see, yeah, I see another year from him as only getting better. Falk, you just hope that it's just not worse. Like if it is, which there's a very real possibility that it is, then that makes things trickier on the second pair. And then you got to be hoping for a lot out of your young guys on the third pair, right? Tyler Tucker, Logan Mailloux, maybe I don't know, maybe a Matt Kessel works his way in at some point, but like some young guys down there, not a lot of experience. And while I think there's a decent case to be made that they'll have good years, I'm just not all the way sold that they will. So I think them having a top 10, blue line is not a crazy like outcome. Um, but I don't know that I'm banking on it. I think the situation could look pretty dire pretty quickly, but that it's a good question.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of question marks, but at the same time, I think they were a top 10 unit for uh, the end of the season last year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when Cam Fowler in St. Louis played like an easy top 15, top 20 defenseman last year. He
Mm-hmm.
was so good. I don't.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I think people understated how good Cam Fowler was. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if him and Colton Pareko can be a 55% expected goals first pairing for the entire season this year, that's really good. Especially when you have Philip Broberg, who's going to crush his second pair minutes again, hopefully. Like I don't mind Falk. I don't like how he plays a ton of minutes, but I mean he's okay. He doesn't. I don't hate him. Um, Tucker was so good last year. I think there's
Right.
legitimate questions about if he can repeat it. Because it
Sure.
did kind of come out a little bit of nowhere. I mean, I thought he was really good in the AHL before they called him up last year, and obviously he really earned it last year, and that's so cool to see. But can he do it again? And then obviously Mayu is a huge wild card too. Um, I think there's questions about the depth behind that too. Um, like I don't. There's Castle. I don't really know who they would bring up from Springfield. I like Leo Loof a lot. Do I
Mm-hmm.
trust him to be an everyday defenseman on a team that has pretty high goals? Not really. Um, I don't know. I think there's legitimate concerns. The big three should be really good, and if they are, they'll be fine. But if they aren't, I think it gets pretty dire pretty quick, and there might need to be some sort of move there. But I like how it looks at the start of the season, knowing what I know from last year.
Yeah, something to think about. But it's something that I don't know. I think that with again, if you think like if half the questions fail and the other half succeed, I still think this is a pretty good defensive unit. Like if
Sure.
Fowler can't be what he is, but Pareko's still Pareko, and Broberg is only getting better, and Mailloux doesn't work out, that's still a decent first pair, a pretty good second pair, and a okay third pair. I don't know. I think that's not terrible in terms of, and I think that there are a lot of defensive units as a whole in the NHL that just like have a lot more holes and a
That's
lot,
true.
they might not have the question marks, but they don't exactly have the upside to ever
Hmm.
be something exciting. So,
Yeah.
um, and then, did you have something on that, Sam?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, yeah, like it. Even if the third pair is like really bad, like I think, you know, people overestimate how important your third pair is to winning hockey games, considering that if you have a good top four, they're playing a ton of minutes. I mean, you look at the Jets last year. They they beat us in the first round, and their third pair of Stanley and Shen was just so preposterously bad. And they played them a lot too, and they still won a round. So like you can get away with having, it's not ideal, but you can get away with not having a ton of defensive depth if your top defensemen are really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, and then thinking about season projections here, kind of getting into expectations for this team. I think Rob posed a really good question in the chat that I want to bring up. So I'll just put it up here. If we get to 100 points and lose in the first round, so does winning a playoff round, is that the benchmark of a good season, or can you have a successful season without a playoff series win?
That's a good question.
I guess I can start.
Hit it.
Um, yeah, I personally, given that this is such a young team, I could see a lot of ways that this season doesn't go as fans are expecting. I think it'll still be good, but I think that there is a realistic possibility that they're not. Sorry, Sam, a top 5 team in the league. I think that there's a chance of that. Um, but I think that given that they're still such a young team and just entering the playoff contention window, if you get matched up against like Dallas in the first round
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Mikko Rantanen has like 2 hat tricks on you in 6 games, and they end up making it to the Western Conference Final again, I personally would still call that a successful season. I think because they're so early into this playoff contention window, um, personally, while obviously yes, you want to see playoff success, especially for Jim Montgomery, that is a little bit of a question mark. Um, I think that depending on how the series goes, if you're still seeing growth, if more than just Thomas and Kyrou show up, like watching Holloway in the playoffs and Binner, I should say, he's going to be there. Um, I think that you can have a successful season if you get to 100 points and lose in the first round still. So that's my take.
I think it's an
Yeah, I agree.
easier yes if they didn't come so close to winning a playoff round this year. They came so close that it feels like they should definitely be able to. They took the President's Trophy winners to 7 games and should have won that game.
They were so good. They were so
Yeah,
good that game.
they were so good. So yeah, like I think if they had lost like 4 games to 2, my answer would be 100 wins. Absolutely, easy. Easy win.
100
Easy
wins.
yes, or 100 points. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm in baseball mode, I guess.
Could get 100 wins.
Yeah.
In an 82
Oh
game
no, you
That-
couldn't. You
That
couldn't.
would be impressive if they got 100 wins in
You
an
get
82 game
98.
season. So where was I going with that? Yeah. So I mean, I think if they had showed a poorer performance in the playoffs this year, um, it would be an easy yes. But I don't know. It gets a little bit trickier now. I think I'll still say yes. I'll still say 100 wins, and even if they lose in the first round, or sorry, 100 points. I just did it again. Just because, like, as we pointed out a few times already today, they didn't make it into the last game of the season. It took a 12-game win streak to get back into the playoff picture. So if they can if they can keep up playoff pace all year, um, I think that's still a big win, maybe even worth 100 wins, and still a big step in the right direction for this team. So I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes.
Yeah, I
It's a
agree.
win.
If they establish like a consistent a team that can win or get 100 points going forward, I think that's a success. Just because that 2-3 matchup is always like such death, and usually if you're able to
Yeah.
get 100 points, you're gonna get the 2-3 matchup, and they're gonna be playing Dallas or Colorado or Winnipeg or
Hmm.
somebody else, and it's really good teams losing the first round every year. So obviously it would suck, but it wouldn't be the end of the world going forward. So I agree with you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, I think that's what I had for questions. Just some things I've been thinking about, and a good question from Rob.
Last one I'll throw out is: do y'all have any specific predictions or expectations for any players? For example, as the viewers of Note News might be aware, as you two might be aware, I'm a big fan of that guy Philip Broberg. Sam, in recent weeks, I've been talking about Broberg theory as like my big thing. I just love the way he impacts sort of team play as a whole. But that was like his value came in that skill, right? Sort of impacting the pace of play and on both sides of the puck. The
Yeah,
team played really good around him.
really.
My expectation for him is to take some steps on like the individual basis, right? Can he start to get some more goals and some more points? I'm thinking this is the season he does it. Um, Anything else like Robert Thomas 100 points, Kyrou 40 goals, anything like that. Benner gets to 200 wins. I think he would need like 27 to get there. So I don't know anything like that y'all are that comes to mind. Any players you expect to have a big year?
Yeah, I mean, I think my big one is just I think I would be not upset because he's going to be good regardless, but I would be disappointed if Thomas doesn't get 100 points. I mean, this should be the best season of his career. He's got he's going to have two really good line mates every game of the season. He's going to play all situations, including with the net empty. Like, he should get there.
I like it.
I hope he does. I think that'd be awesome. We haven't had a 100-point player in so long. I guess I'll play like higher, lower too. I think it might be a little unfair to expect a huge offensive season from Holloway. I think obviously he's a really, really good player. I'm not going to complain about him ever, but I think if you go back and look at some of his goals last year, like he was just he was shooting from way outside, and he was scoring, and his on ice shooting percentage to him and Kyrou was through the roof. I think it might be fair to expect like a little bit less in terms of points, but he's also such a good player that it just doesn't really matter. And I just can't quit Alex Texier. I think at some point he's going to figure out how to be a unique middle six player with a lot of fun scoring ability. Um, there's also a pretty good chance he gets traded in training camp, but just gotta have a goofy one in there.
I like it.
Yeah. Mine's a little basic, but I am just like so in on the Snuggerud for Calder
Let's go.
agenda.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
it's a little easy. So I'll think of a better one, but I am just everything that you look for in a prototypical, uh, like, excuse me, everything that you look for in a prototypical Calder winner is there for him. He's got the playing time. He's got the coaching. He's got the line mates with the best passer in the league. He's got the goal scoring ability. He's got the minutes. He's got everything that any just like Blues removed. If you're looking to predict who is going to win these awards, that's exactly the kind of like profile you'd look for. That I am just so in on Snuggerud this year for the Calder. Way more than I should be, I'm aware, but I don't care. It's fun. And then I'll go that I think Cam Fowler is that guy, and I think he will repeat and have a big year. I think, what did he have last year? 36 points in 51 games. 50 points is a lot of
50?
points. Yeah,
I can see
that's
it.
what I'm thinking. I
That
will
would be
go.
career best. I think
Have
his
they
career
had a
best is
50? Have
48
they
points,
had a
right?
50-point defenseman since the last year of Pietrangelo?
I don't.
Did
I'm almost certain
Pietrangelo even
no.
have 50 points that year?
That's a good
I'm
question.
not even sure if that's
Was
the case.
Shattenkirk the last Blues defenseman to get 50 points? No, Pietrangelo had to have. He had
I'm
like
doing some
15 goals.
research.
The last year before.
He had 52 points in
Oh, okay.
2019-20. He had 54 in 2017-2018.
He was really good his last year here. He had a
For sure.
legitimate. He had Norris shouts that year.
Yeah, it finished fourth.
Oh, nice. Damn. Never been
For
top
fun
three.
of it, I'll go Fowler hits 50.
All right.
Nice. I like
That's a
it.
good pick. I think that's Alec. Do you wanna share our announcement real quick before we
Oh
get out of here?
yes. We do have an announcement before we get out of here. Thank
Sam,
you
this
everyone who's
applies
still
to you
tuned in.
too.
Yes.
Okay.
We are doing Note
If you want.
News Fantasy Hockey Leagues.
Ooh.
So everybody who wants to sign up, as long as we don't get like every single subscriber, which if that happens, I don't know, I'll figure something out. But everybody who wants to sign up will play. I'm going to be putting out a Google form later tonight. Check on Twitter, check on our Instagram story page, or check on the YouTube like channel posts page. You'll see it all over. I'm going to put out a Google form to get information. But everybody who wants to, we will get on separate fantasy hockey leagues. We'll just create as many as are necessary. I think drafts will be held once the league gets filled. I think I will want to give it 2 days before your draft, and I think most will be held around 8 p.m. Central. I think is the time we had set, but that is subject to change. But John and I will be in all the leagues, so you can compete against us. In everybody who wants to hop in, I think it would be really fun. So we will get that going, and just stay tuned for announcements if you're interested.
Yeah. We'll ask for some contact info as well, so we'll be in touch with you about when drafts will occur and what all you'll need to do. And for those who are playing, don't draft Philip Broberg. He's mine. I'll just say that. Awesome. Yeah, Sam, you're welcome to sign up as well, but you don't have to. No pressure.
I may. We'll see.
Awesome.
Not a huge fantasy hockey guy. But.
All right. Well, if you think you can best Alec and I, then be sure to sign up. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think that'll do it for us this time. This has been a really fun discussion. Sam, thanks again for coming on. We'd love to have you on as always.
Anytime. Had a blast, as always.
Yeah, for sure. You can find Sam on Twitter or X at STL Analytics. Posts a lot of great content over there. And as the season gets started, be sure to check out some of his content. Be sure to check out some of our content as well. So if you haven't already, we'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for 500 subs again. We appreciate all the love. Help us get to 600 and beyond. So hit that button if you haven't. Like this video. We're also on audio. We're on Spotify and Apple. You can follow, rate, and review. Those go a long way. Help get the podcast to new people. And then follow us on socials, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at No News Pod. Post a lot of other great stuff. Thanks to everyone for joining in live. Thanks to everyone for watching and listening. We'll see you next time. And of course, let's go Blues.
Let's go
Go
Blues.
Blues.